Welcome to Lead Different.
Can a marriage that feels like it is on life support truly be raised from the dead? Welcome back to the Lead Different podcast. Today we are having a raw and powerful conversation about healing, redemption, and the radical power of God's grace in the domestic church. I'm joined by Marty and Diana Thompson, Regional Marriage Disciple Missionaries with the Alexander House Apostolate. Marty is a theology-trained coach with a powerful story of overcoming addiction, and Diana is a Maxwell leadership coach dedicated to renewal and accompaniment. Together, they have turned their own journey of brokenness and healing into a global mission to restore marriages and strengthen families. In this episode, we peek behind the veil of a marriage that faced infidelity, addiction, and loss, only to be transformed into a new creation. We discuss the marriage discipleship model, the impact of John Paul II's theology of the body, and why there is always hope for your relationship, no matter how dark the season feels. This is an essential watch for anyone who believes in the power of second chances. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned as we learn to lead different with Marty and Diana Thompson.
Why not leadership? Why not lead different?
Welcome to Lead Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Marty and Diana Thompson, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, Dan.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being on. Sorry, it's taken a while since we had our first couple of conversations to get to this recording, but I'm excited to talk to you guys. What a wonderful ministry you have. And just reading through that introduction and what you've been through, I know it's going to be a very interesting conversation. So I'd love to just hear from both of you. Marty, when I read through the reading, the impact that reading Theology of the Body had on you, I recommend that to anybody that has any sort of issues with pornography addiction or marriage issues, where there's always issues in marriages where there's different drives that are differing, and a lot of times we think, oh, that's just biological. There's a lot of spiritual to that too. So, Marty, Marty and Diana, why don't you guys take us a little bit through your background and how you ended up where you are today?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Dan. And yeah, even surrendering my addiction to lust and the things that involved in that, I learned later on that I had this pornographic mindset, the way I viewed the world, the way that I viewed women, even the way that I viewed my wife. And it was the sacraments, devotion, especially the rosary, but reading and studying in a prayerful way, John Paul II's Theology of the Body, formerly in my Catholic degree at Holy Apostles Catholic College and Seminary, but also just personally, reading and studying just how God created us as male and female in his image, right? As a communion of persons, right? And then the fall and what happened there, but then also the redemption, not just of our souls, right, through baptism, but also the redemption of our bodies and how we can overcome this lustful mindset that we have oftentimes. And so, it's taken some time, years of transformation, allowing God's grace to heal and to work through me. And of course, my cooperation with God's grace so that I can see Diana, see other women, and see God the way it was meant to be, right? There's always temptation, but with God's grace, we can be free.
Yeah, no, and you bring up a great point with regards to freedom. We think of freedom as being able to do what we want when we want, but there's greater freedom in following the structure and the form and the rules that come with our faith and living faith-filled lives that are ordered appropriately. What about you, Diana?
Yeah, same thing for me. I also have a broken past and a broken background. As Marty stated, I struggled with the same thing, with lust and addiction to pornography, and really throughout the years leading up to so many reversions, because I'm a cradle Catholic, and so many reversions within my faith, to keep coming back, to keep practicing the sacraments of confession. Spiritual direction was a great key thing for me to heal through those wounds of addiction and brokenness, and really losing my identity too, not really understanding who I was, because I was so part of the world, in the world, and seeking love in all the wrong places, right? And so Jesus just kept calling me back to him through the sacraments and through spiritual direction, and through friends and family that prayed so hard for me to heal. And that's very important when you have a community and family that's behind you, desiring your healing and your transformation. So, yeah.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because we don't often hear that from women. It's usually the men that struggle with porn addiction. Women are perfect, right? They don't have that kind of problem. It's the big bad guys that are doing that. But it can affect all of us right now. I listened to a long interview, 3.5 hours, with a gentleman who started a company called Shift Your Phone, that helps you get rid of scrolling on your phone. Mm-hmm. And I adopted the technology, and it was so nice because it allows you to not, it helps you not have access to any social media. So when you lock your phone, guess what? There is no Instagram, there's no Facebook, there's no LinkedIn, there's not even professional apps. So you're not spending time doom scrolling, which then leads to down that path that, because it's an algorithm and they're trying to guide you to a place, and that place isn't always good. So you both had that struggle. Tell us about how you overcame it. What led to it, first of all, and then how you overcame it and how you use that today in leading couples in your ministry.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. For me, I grew up in a broken family, divorce, alcoholism, drug addiction, lust addiction, right? And so was kind of raised in that environment. And after surrendering an addiction to alcohol and drugs in 2000, I started to learn about sobriety and virtue and all that, and met some good Catholics who invited me to Mass. And, within a few years decided to be received and to come into the church to receive the sacraments. And even then I was still struggling with my lust addiction. And Dan, it was really cool the way God works. When I was overcoming that, using Christopher West's teaching on theology of the body, and a plan that he had a while back that was on a 6-set CD set, a battle plan for sexual purity. I went through that. And part of that process was doing a general confession, going back through your life, and all those relationships, and putting it down on paper, and then taking it to the confessional. Well, on that day that I went to do that confession with my pastor and spiritual director, there was a flyer for Christopher West, who was coming to one of our local churches to speak about the chastity and sexual purity. And so I grabbed it and thought that was cool, a neat coincidence. So I went in and did my confession, and it was just, an amazing experience of just being, lifted of all that weight, the guilt and the shame. And by this time, Diane and I were friends. And so after that experience, I remember asking Diana if she wanted to go to this event with me. I thought, what a great, way to get to know each other and spend time, learning again about God's grace and how he created us male and female. And it was a great talk. And I always say jokingly when I share this story, God knows me better than I know myself. So we went to the event, and as soon as we got there, Christopher West separated us. He put men on the right, women on the left. And so I always say we spent our first date separated, because again, God knows me better than I do. And so we were able to, be virtuous and learned a lot. And it was the beginning of what became, our engagement and then our marriage.
Yeah. What was your, tell us your side of it, Diana?
Yeah. So I started struggling around 16, 17 years old with lust and pornography. And it was something that I just sought out. There wasn't anybody that introduced me to it. But as I went through several relationships in my 20s, it was pretty much kind of like what you did when you were in a relationship with someone. And so it felt normal, but it also felt disordered. And I always walked away from it like, I don't think this isn't right. And so it just, it's a terrible addiction because once you see it, you can't unsee it for a very, very long time unless you look for help. And my help was confession and adoration. I would spend a lot of time crying in front of the Blessed Sacrament, asking and begging Jesus to heal me from this, heal me from my lifestyle, heal me from the ambition that the world was wanting me to go after so quickly, and wanting the platform. There wasn't really social media back then. So it was more of, the influences. I was around the circle of friends during college. All of that influenced me highly. Music was another one that really influenced me in my dark path of addiction. And so that didn't help either. Listening to certain types of music led me more and more to want to act out on it. So there was just a battle going on in my soul. But I always look back and find that I went to confession as much as I could and went to the Blessed Sacrament as much as I could. And then I discovered spiritual warfare and exorcism prayers. And that was when that was introduced to me when Marty and I were dating. And in the beginning of our marriage, I would tell him, like, some of these things from my past keep coming to haunt me, and I need to be present. I need to be pure with you. I need to be clear with you. And so I remember he prayed some deliverance prayers over me, and today we still pray deliverance prayers for almost anything that we feel a spiritual warfare attack on, and that's how I started to really heal from it, heal from overcoming and unseeing all of that. And it was truly God's grace, truly a miracle of His healing power, of His precious blood coming over me and sealing that, and never again going back to that.
Amen.
It's so good to hear. And we're going to get listeners, we're going to get to the good part, because these guys are doing amazing work now based on that experience. But I wanted our listeners to hear where it all came from. I wanted to hear that background, because I know there's probably somebody listening right now. And, our audience is business leaders, people who are successful in every possible way that you can look at it. Except that they've got that deep, dark secret, right? Or everything is going really well, and they even think their marriage is going well. But little do they know that they're probably living separate lives, even though they're coming together in the evenings. They're coming together for meals and public appearances. There's a lot going on in the background. I heard the story. My wife is a second grade teacher. She told this story to the kids about a little boy who was struggling carrying his cross, right? And he's told that he can go into the church and he can pick anyone else's cross. He can give them his cross and can pick someone else's. And then when he took someone else's cross, he realized, you know what, I'll take mine back. I'll take whatever I'm going through is probably a lot easier. We don't know what people are going through, and what's behind the decisions that they make, peeking behind the veil. And so first of all, let me thank you for allowing us to peek behind your veil and understand everything that comes into what you guys have built, because it's an amazing ministry. You are now marriage disciples. What is a marriage disciple? Tell us what that is, and tell us about the work that you guys are doing today.
Well, we learned from experience about marriage discipleship because we went through the ministry. It was about 4 or 5 years ago, and although we experienced a lot of healing in ourselves, as we were coming together in engagement and marriage, we were still wounded, and so we were off to a good start, like many other couples that get married, and we were going to mass every Sunday and sometimes during the week, and praying together. And right away we started having some complications with pregnancies. Our first son died at birth, and then we've had 3 miscarriages in between the 4 boys that we have now. So we've been blessed, but we've experienced some tragedies and some hardships, and some other things that have happened that have been hard, and it's taken a toll on us. And so 8 years ago we were in a really bad place where that woundedness really kind of came to the surface, Dan. And, we both fell into our old behaviors of sin and even infidelity. And so we were in a very, very low spot, 8 years ago. But fortunately, God gave us a seed of hope. I found Greg and Julie Alexander's book, Marriage 911, and they are the founders of the Alexander House and the Marriage Discipleship program. And so we spent several months, trying to make it work. We were on survival mode, like a lot of couples who are just trying to get by, struggling with tragedies, hardships. We had a lot of built up resentment and anger towards one another, did not know how to communicate. And so just winging it. And this was during COVID. And so just to make things more fun, right?
Right.
But it really was a blessing for us because it kept us together. Because there was a time where Diane even thought about separation and wanting to leave me. I was being a knucklehead and being neglectful as my vocation as leader, right, and provider and protector, especially on a spiritual level. And so we were in a really, really difficult place. And so finding this resource and reading again Greg and Julie's book that gave us a lot of inspiration, because they had been through the ringer too, close to divorce. But God, put somebody in their life to help turn them around, to help them, push pause and see that there's another way, that there is hope, that if your marriage is struggling, or even if your marriage is broken and you feel like it's on life support, whether, there's infidelity or woundedness or abuse, or even addictions, right? That there is hope if you're willing to trust God. The God that can raise the dead can raise your marriage and turn it into a new marriage. And that's what marriage discipleship does. It allows couples to experience God's healing power. And what's beautiful about it, it's a couple to couple program. It's 7 weeks. It's free. And you go through it with another couple, a marriage disciple couple, who walks with you on that journey. So that in essence is marriage discipleship. And we were so grateful for what God did for us during that process, including allow us to, truly forgive one another, learn how to communicate, learn how to meet one another's emotional needs, learn how to put God first in our marriage, that really transform our marriage into a new marriage so that we could truly love each other and want to be with each other. And then, like I said, we were so grateful that, a few years after that, we signed up to become marriage disciples ourselves. And we've been doing that for the last 2 years, helping other couples, walking with them, find hope and healing in their marriage. So.
Yeah. Hearing you talk about that journey, I really like the book, by the way, great recommendation, Greg and Julie Alexander. I think when you look at Marriage 911, it's at the core, the book's really about the fact that most marriages don't fail suddenly. They unravel through neglect. There's unresolved pain, breakdowns in communication. The good news in what you're telling us is that with intentional effort and prayer and working together, you can make it through. When you tell us about that low point in your marriage 8 years ago, and oh, by the way, we added COVID to the mix, right? You mentioned you've got 4 boys. 4 wonderful boys that you're raising, and but you've also had some lost babies that didn't make it. So there's a lot that you've dealt with. What was the leadership lesson for you, Marty, in the recovery?
Yeah, when Diana woke up that morning, and we were sleeping in separate rooms at this time, again, eight years ago. I was working nights, she was working days, and I thought that was we had babies, hijacking the bedroom, and so I thought that was okay and that was practical. But what I didn't realize, that was a huge red flag. And one day Diana woke up and said she regretted being married to me, which was a punch in the gut. And I was angry at first, but when I finally came to my senses within 24 to 48 hours, I was like, you know what, I need to man up. Like, I am the leader of this family and I need to save this family. And so I went to confession and I started seeing a confessor, weekly, and he was giving me things to do. Now, I had people in my life who were saying, Marty, you need to prepare for the worst, which would be, separation and divorce. But I just, when I heard that, it just motivated me even more to want to find a way to convince Diana that our marriage was worth saving, because, for several months, she was not on board with that. It took me learning how to love her unconditionally, how to re-woo her to convince her that our life was worth saving. And in the meantime, I was working on myself and trying to grow in virtue and overcome that pornographic mindset that I still had even after years of being in recovery. And so it was really stepping up, Dan, and saying, I'm the leader. I have to love Diana the way Jesus loved the church if I want her to love, trust, and respect me. And again, it was a several-month journey of not knowing how this was going to go. But in the end, I just remember getting that phone call one night at work. Diana was in tears, just remorseful, and saying, okay, let's try to figure this out.
What was that like for you on your side, Diana, to see Marty step into that role? You were in a leadership role. You were having the corporate career, and Marty was in the stay-at-home dad mode. So that's already different, right? Not a lot of people do that. So that was a little bit of a change in roles. But what I love about the story is that, Marty, you realize whether you're the primary breadwinner or not, you're still the leader, and you took on that leadership role. How did that come about for you, Diana? Because you were ready to go. You came to the point where you said, Marty, you know what? I'm done with you. And so, and Marty on the other side was hearing things like, get ready for that. You need to protect yourself. Right. And he took, and thankfully he took the opposite approach. He said, you know what? I'm going to fight. And he fought. So tell us what that was like for you.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, being a part of corporate America for over 30 years, it's an indoctrination of mindset. It starts at work where, you just strip the person, whoever's your leader, you strip them of that power so that you can take on to that next level, so that you can keep climbing the ladder, and you step on people. And I brought that home. I brought those skill sets home, and I just wanted to strip Marty of his authority as a man. And I wanted to lead him because I was already a leader at work. I was very successful at work, and just bringing those thought processes, those mindsets, and saying, what do I need you for? And I used to lead my teams that way too. Unfortunately, I used to micromanage them and yell at them and be mean because I wanted to be that number one person all the time. I wanted to be that go-to person all the time. And I wasn't getting that from Marty either. I felt like you said, there was a lot of neglect. So if he didn't need me, why do I need him? And so that's my side of the story of just bringing that formation, that secular formation from corporate America home, where, the women can do anything now. They can be corporate executives. They can do exactly everything that a man can do. So why do you need them? Or I can just throw Marty away and get a new Marty somewhere else, it was just a very distorted, very disordered mindset of mine. And I had asked Jesus to show me the truth, show me the truth about myself, and show me the truth about the situation that we were in. Like you said, there was infidelity happening, and Jesus showed me. He came very quickly to show me very clearly what the truth is in our situation. And that's where like the blinders came off, and I just broke down, because he really showed me who I was and what I was destroying and what I was trying to destroy. He showed me my pride. He showed me my egoism. He showed me all the people that I hurt, including Marty. And so that was, it was almost like an illumination of conscience that was happening to me, that I felt that, wait, what am I doing? I woke up and saw the love of my children, and saw the beauty of God's love and his creation right in front of me. And calling Marty was just like that, just like a lifting, a freedom to say, I'm sorry, I want to work this out. And the other thing was that Marty was showing me his leadership, because he was on his knees. He was praying the rosary. He was doing everything he could, like he said, to woo me back. But more of it was the spiritual attraction again, which was the first thing that attracted me to him in the beginning, was his faith. And that's what attracted each other, was our faith. And so that sprung up where, he was constantly praying the rosary, constantly seeking priests, constantly going to church and adoration, and seeing that, and not saying, well, if this is what you want, I'll walk away too. He was ready to battle. And that's what really got me to say, where am I going to find this? Where am I going to find this anywhere else, that a man is going to choose Jesus to help him to save our marriage, where most men turn to other vices and other coping mechanisms to save their marriage.
Yeah, or to continue to destroy it, right?
Right.
Actually, the other coping mechanisms aren't going to lead to reunion, and it's so easy. I want you to talk a little bit more, if you can, Diane, about that indoctrination that happens to women, because women are just as capable as men. There's no doubt that you can lead. There's no doubt that you can do the work. The intellectual capacity is there. I think, other than warfare, there's pretty much not a whole lot of things that women can't do that men can do. And there are even some women that can do the warfare part, right? But what were some of the things that, looking back now, you say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I fell into that, in terms of that what you call that indoctrination, to make you feel like, okay, I don't need a husband. I don't need Marty. I can do this. I can replace him. Tell us a little bit about that, because I know there are people listening that are looking, and maybe even in that same situation right now. What would you say to someone who is going through that indoctrination?
Yeah, it's something that in the first, I would say, 13, 14 years of being a leader in corporate America, it was always about, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 2-year plan? How many people are you going to step on in order to get to where you need to go? You need to make this certain amount of money by this certain age. You need to hit all of these goals. You just have all these investments. Mm-hmm. You need to hire the right people and fire the weak. Mm-hmm. You need to make sure that the people on your team are not as smart as you, so that they don't take your position, but that they continue to work hard for you, and work them hard enough so that you're showing them a lesson in life that you can't get by easy. It's all through hard work. But that hard work is distorted because you're not leading them, you're micromanaging them, you're stepping on them, you're criticizing them, you're judging them, you're diminishing them. And that's what I learned the first 13 years in my career of how to lead people. until John Maxwell came on the scene and really reversed that whole mindset of that you cannot lead that way. And that was the latter part of my career where I started to really shift to sharing more about my failures, sharing more about my mistakes, and not so much here's how I climbed or here's where I got to, or how many investments I have or how many companies I'm a part of, but more of John Maxwell actually taught me to look at myself as a true servant of Jesus, as someone that's washing the hands and feet of others. And when I shifted that, it was harder for me to reach my goals. I wasn't number one anymore. I was in the middle of the pack. I started to be called average. I started to be called all kinds of different names at work. Like, you don't know how to hold people accountable. You don't know how to do this. You need to work on X, Y, and Z to get better. But it was because now I was more of a threat because I understood the value of people, the value of Jesus is my leader. I'm his servant. I'm his disciple. I'm just here as an instrument to help others find the light in their workplace and to talk about Jesus in the workplace, to talk about that he is our leader, that he is our provider, that you don't need to stress about how much money you're going to make or how many zeros are behind your income, that he is your source. He is your provider. All you need to do is treat others as humans and value them and listen to them, communicate with them, ask good questions, care, love, be patient. And so all of those virtues were something that I wasn't practicing the first 13 years in my career, which I was bringing home to Marty and treating him, just as bad as I treated my leaders and the people that reported to me. But the latter part of it, when Marty and I discovered John Maxwell, we really started to break down the walls of pride and really live in that virtue of humility, and get rid of the egoism, get rid of the I'm right all the time or I know all the answers, and really just go to work and love on my team that were humans, that were broken, and they needed me to see the light in them because they didn't believe in themselves anymore. And with that being said, the results came after that. I started to perform better. I was number one. I went through all of those awards and recognition, but it really didn't mean anything to me anymore, or the desire to climb the ladder, because I know that I was leading them to Jesus.
And it wasn't
about the Diana show anymore.
Yeah, there's a couple of things you said there. You went through a transformation professionally, but then you brought that home, right? You started to care, you started to love, you started to be patient with your team. And then that you went through a middle, because you went from being a very driven and on top of everything kind of leader. Then you backed off, and then you became this new leader who cared, loved, and was patient. But then you did that at home too. And so that led to a transformation at home. It led you to give Marty the chance that he was looking for, and it opened your eyes to the effort that he was putting in to lead you and your family. So Marty, how was that for you as you were seeing that transformation happen around the same time, right? And then you guys ended up in the ministry together.
Yeah, because that transformation that she was going through at work and then coming home and experiencing that, where, even though that our situation was definitely different, where she was working outside the house, I was working, from home and homeschooling the boys, we were able to still allow God to prioritize our roles as husband and wife and as father and mother, where I am the spiritual leader, protector, and provider. And it gets tricky, right? When the wife is working out of the house and the husband is working at home, which isn't as rare as it used to be. And it can work. It definitely should not be the normal way of things, I think. I mean, I even, recently reading a book, The Life of Mary through the Mystics, talks about there were times where when they were in Egypt, Joseph couldn't get paid for the work that he was doing. So Mary would do, work to help provide for the family. And then the last 8 years of his life, he got sick and Mary had to provide, and Jesus helped because he was a little bit older. Mm-hmm. And again, that's not a promotion to tell men to stay home and for women to go to work. But, sometimes things happen. But what we learned, though, is that those spiritual roles that God gave us as husband and wife and father and mother still hold true. That it's my responsibility to lead this family, right? Even when it comes to making decisions financially and other things. And I think Diana learning to respect that, because again, I was learning how to love her first, right? That passage from Ephesians where it first says, wives, be submissive to your husbands, right? But then it ends with husbands, love your wives. I think that's to emphasize the latter, right? That if we want our wives to trust us, to love us, to respect us, we first have to be willing to give all, to give everything. And that's what I had to do. And that's what I did. And that, I think, helped Diana to be willing to be led, to be my co-pilot. I like the analogy of an airplane or a ship. You always have a co-pilot or a pilot and a co-pilot and a captain and a co-captain, right? And that's what we are together, sharing the same ship on the same mission. And it really set us up. The transformation that I was going through, becoming that leader that God was calling me to be from the very beginning. And then Diana's transition and how she treated other people at work, and then how she came home and treated me, that led us to be ready for marriage discipleship, to experience that healing and restorativeness and transformation in our own marriage, that then led us to become marriage disciples so that we can help other couples.
And I can see so much value in what you do, especially with your experience. One of the things you mentioned earlier that I think is important for our leaders who are listening is this is couple to couple. And did I hear correctly? This is something that is done free of charge. So you work with other couples who are struggling. Maybe they're in the place you were in 8 years ago, and they're listening and they're saying, you know what, I need help with what Marty struggled with, or what Diana was struggling with, or maybe I'm being that leader. I'm treating my people badly, and I'm also bringing home and I'm treating my spouse badly, male, father, husband or wife, whichever it is. How do people get involved with your marriage discipleship? If somebody's listening and wants help, and of course we'll put this in the show notes, where can they go and how can they get involved to get help? Or if they say, you know what, I want to be, I think we went through what Marty and Diana went through, and we're on the other side of it, and we'd like to help other couples.
So the best way to find us and find the help is to go to our website, thealexanderhouse.org, and you click on the marriage discipleship page, and it's really user friendly. And you go on there and you kind of read through. And if you feel like this is something that you need, that you're struggling in your marriage, no matter where you are in your marriage, some people are just been married a long time and they're struggling with communication. Right. And so marriage discipleship can really help them to learn how to better communicate. Or like us and so many other couples, your marriage is on life support and it's broken and it needs to be transformed, right? Marriage discipleship. Yeah. It's a beautiful free 7-week couple to couple process that really allows the couple to experience God's love, God's healing power, his mercy, forgiveness that comes through both the husband and the wife, from God's grace. That is the most powerful part of the ministry. And so, yeah, go to our website, check it out, sign up, and they'll put you with a marriage disciple. We have more than 12 right now, I think, maybe even close to 16 marriage disciples that are serving and are ready to serve, couples who are looking for help.
Nationwide.
Fantastic. So alexanderhouse.com.
thealexanderhouse.com or .org.
.org. Okay, Alexander, we'll make sure and put that correctly in the show notes. You recommended a couple of books, and they're sitting behind me, Marty, and I'd love to talk about them just a little bit. One of them was Marriage 911. I looked through both of them, and I think one of the things that I got out of it was, if we read it through a self-awareness lens, which is one of the things I do, the book becomes a powerful reminder that the way you lead at home mirrors the way we lead everywhere else. Or in your case, Diana, the way you lead at work mirrors the way you led at home. You kind of brought that home with you. What was the big lesson? What makes you recommend Marriage 911 so much?
Well, I think the answer is in the title, right? If you're experiencing, an emergency, right? At home, you call 911, right? Well, same thing in your marriage. If you're experiencing an emergency in your marriage, call Marriage 911. And what's great about, that book, which is Greg and Julie Alexander's testimony of how they struggled, with so many different things, right? Including resentment, infidelity, and other things that they didn't realize had so many grave negative consequences, right? And they didn't understand God's plan for marriage and what the church teaches and what Christ expects of us as a husband and a wife. And so although they were looking for a way out, they found a priest. I'd say God put a priest in their life who helped them to hit the brakes and really consider and discern and pray about what is God's plan for your marriage. So it was Greg, as he writes in the book, who took the initiative to look through scripture, to look through the catechism, and discover God's plan for marriage. And he was amazed. And one day he asked Julie to come into the room and say, hey, look what I found. I cannot believe this. And at that point, they were both on board of trying to save their marriage and allow God's, healing power to transform them. And he did. And then, the nonprofit, the Alexander House, the Marriage Discipleship program, and so many other wonderful things that they do to help heal and promote marriage and family life. You'll see if you go on their website, they do other things as well, but parish outreach, ministry outreach, and wonderful things.
Yeah. I think the big lesson that I saw in reading the book is, when the question you're asking yourself, how did this get so bad? I think the more important question that you need to ask is, what have I not been willing to see about myself?
Right.
Yeah.
It's not about the situation. It's about looking in that mirror and saying, okay, what do I need to do? And I think that's what Greg did. Right. And then once he got the answers, then he invited Julie and said, okay, take a look at this. These are the solutions. That is a great way to just work together. The other book, the 12 steps and the sacraments. So that's the other book. Scott Weeman, just a great recovery framework using the 12 steps. What's the big lesson from that book that makes you recommend that book, Marty?
Yeah, it's very similar. A lot of people, men and women, husbands and wives, struggle with woundedness, struggle with unhealthy attachment, struggle with compulsions and or addictions, habitual sin, vice, before, during, and after getting married. And these things have long-term effects on us. And it was 25 years ago that I found sobriety through 12-step recovery meetings, and then came into the church and really got busy working on myself and learning how to participate and then help others, because that's key in recovery, especially 12-step recovery, which is really discipleship 101. If you read the 12-step literature, like Catholic in Recovery, and you read the Gospels, you're going to see a lot of similarities. And I say humorously, 12-step recovery is Christianity for dummies. And it gives you a step-by-step process on how to reconcile with God in your relationship with Christ, how to become Christ-like, and how to serve others, right? Including your wife, your children, and then everyone else after that whom God puts in your life. And the beauty about Catholic in Recovery, it brings together and integrates the 12 steps, which is very, again, Catholic, Christian, and the sacraments, which again, that's where we receive God's grace. I would say 99.9% of what happens, in recovery and in our faith, when we're seeking help and healing, is God's grace. The rest is our cooperation. It's not much, but we have to cooperate. It was St. Augustine who said that God who created you without your cooperation will not save or help you without your cooperation. And so this book and what Scott Weeman did for Catholics and anybody that wants to come and learn from Catholics in recovery, you don't have to be Catholic, can experience the power of the 12 steps and the sacraments and traditional life.
And just to add to that, I went through the 12-step program as well. And so I encourage women to look at that. You don't have to have a major addiction like alcohol or pornography or any of the major ones, but I went through it to help me overcome perfectionism and control, fear of failure, fear of what others think, comparison, just so many things, selfishness, and just going through those 12 steps, which the first one is to admit that you're powerless and that Jesus is here to be that channel of grace to help you get over yourself and grow in virtue so that you can serve and help others grow in virtue. So I highly recommend it. That 12 steps should be for anyone that is addicted to any of the vices that hold them prison of themselves and can't look at themselves in the mirror, and they need help.
Thank you for that perspective, Diana. It's easy to look at Marty and Diana and see you guys smiling, and I see the way Marty looks at Diana, Diana looks at Marty, and there's just that love that you have, that you radiate, and say, yeah, well, it's easy for them to say they've got it all together, but that's why it was so great to hear not only the background, everything you've went through to get to where you are. But Marty, I think you mentioned it earlier. We still struggle, and Diana, you mentioned you've reverted so many times, right? So it's not, it's never a finished process because we're human, right? God didn't. We had the fall, so we all unfortunately don't get to be perfect beings as we would have been had there not been original sin. So we're still struggling through some of that. What keeps you coming back? I guess it's easier the more you do it, right? But there's always that one, the evil one will say, oh, you're not going to be able to get out of this, right? Just give up. You're not good. What keeps you coming back? What helps you continue to fight the good fight?
I would say renouncing Satan.
Yeah.
Every single time, every minute of the day where he comes into the thoughts and starts, have that critical nature or that bug in your ear about, look at your husband or look at your children or look at you. You're never going to make it. You were much better when you were, working and getting six figures. What are you going to do now? All of those negative things that points us away from focusing on Jesus, is renouncing that and sending that to the foot of the cross and saying, Jesus is King. Jesus is my Lord and my God, and him is who I serve, and him is who I will die for and stand for my faith. And that's what I see in Marty. He's the leader, provider, and priest of our home. And he's always pointing us to Jesus, and he's always pointing our marriage to Jesus. And he's always very clear about when I'm not practicing my marital vows or what I should be doing as a wife. And he doesn't do it in a mean way, but he's just, hey, remember what we do. And so, we check each other, and we check in with each other every week and every day, and we pray together. Prayer is what keeps us coming back. It seals our covenant with each other. It seals our marriage, and that daily prayer keeps us in God's grace so that we can go out and keep helping other people, especially marriages that are struggling.
Rebuke, renounce, and reject.
And if I can add, Dan,
absolutely, Marty.
In simple form, say no to self, say no to the enemy, say no to sin, say yes to Jesus, but be ready to get to work. and be willing to, well, Jesus said, deny yourself, pick up your cross and follow me. Because it's not easy, right? We still struggle with temptation, with loving each other unconditionally. And so it's a daily battle. But when you say yes to Christ and you draw nearer to Christ, I don't want to say it becomes easier, but it becomes more rewarding, more convicting. And you want to suffer, you want to make the sacrifice. And, and if I could share, real quick, the way God has tested us in that is, several months ago, Diana left her job, and we were a few months ago asked to become missionaries within the Alexander House Apostolate to work full time as missionaries. And that means neither one of us now have a regular, paying job. We are trusting solely on God to be our provider so that we can do this ministry full time. We rely on donor and monthly supporters. And so far, we've been doing this since the end of November. It's amazing how God provides when you say no to self, no to the enemy, and yes to Jesus. He'll put you to work, and it's not going to be easy. But I tell you what, we're together every day. We're working together every day. Our family life is so awesome. We're with our kids every day, and we're working for Jesus, and helping to save and restore marriages and men and women who are struggling with, again, addictions, compulsions, and unhealthy attachments, to find, hope and healing and restoration.
I love that. I was trying to think of a great ending question, but that is a great testimony that you just ended on. So Marty and Diana, I want to thank you for being on. I want to thank you for your honesty. I want to thank you for your ministry. I want to thank you for your faith and for sharing that all with us. There's so many great leadership lessons in this conversation. I can't wait to listen to it, chop it up, and send out some clips because there are so many great lessons. You guys have done a great job. I want to make sure and let people know how they can find you. So we'll put all that information in the show notes. I know you're both on LinkedIn. Are there other social media platforms that we can find you?
Yes, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Perfect. So we'll make sure and put those links. How about yourself, Marty?
LinkedIn, you'll see me there, but I all the social media stuff that's Diana's realm. So
Diana's realm. So we'll
I'm
go
on YouTube a lot, but you won't see me.
We'll go through Diana to get to Marty, but we'll make sure and get you guys there. Guys, it has been a pleasure. If you have gotten something out of today's show, if you learned something from Marty and Diana, please make sure and comment on the video, share this video with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the Lead Different podcast channel. And we want to grow this podcast. We want to be the #1 Catholic leadership podcast in the world. And so we want to bring you more amazing guests like Marty and Diana. So we can do that when you support us, when you subscribe to the channel, and let us know what you think. So Marty and Diana, what do you guys say we end the show on that note?
Why not?
Thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure. I cannot wait for our follow-up conversation, and I'm looking forward to having you guys back on the show. I knew we were going to run out of time. I still have so many questions for you, but thank you for being on. God bless you, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Dan. God bless.
This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different because great leaders change the world.